When women dare to fully be themselves, to rise up as the divine beings they are, to operate in their magic, their sexuality, their power, they are always labeled one thing: wicked.
Wicked is a podcast for women who dare to walk in their true identity, power, and magic. Who go against societal culture of being seen and not heard. Who are the black sheep and powerhouses the structure tries to defeat. And here is your shepherd leading you astray, Mystic.
All right, you guys. Finally getting around to another episode. Hopefully the audio is okay. I'm recording from my cell phone while Zion slumbers in the backseat of the car. I just started weaning him, and sleep is a very rare, already was rare, and now it's even more rare. So I'm going to try to take advantage of this little bit of time while I sit here in the parking lot of the park and record this episode because I've been wanting to for a while now. What I want to talk about today is the lost art of motherhood. And the reason why I'm calling it that is because motherhood seems to be long gone from our society today. And I'm not saying it in the way that you think. This is something that's truly been forced upon our society. When I'm scrolling through TikTok, Threads, not too much Instagram. I don't really know what Instagram is anymore. It's a very bizarre place it has become. But yeah, like Threads and TikTok, I see two things. I see a whole ton of single mothers. I see married single mothers. I see mothers insanely frustrated, burnt out, and overwhelmed. And then I see young women, like in their 20s, talking about how they never want to have children and they never want to be mothers. And most of the reason why these 20-somethings are choosing this is because the 30 and 40-somethings are posting their raw videos of what motherhood is like. And it really breaks my heart because this isn't how motherhood is supposed to be. And because of the toxic society that we live in, where mothers are put last and they're expected to put everybody else first, we have a crumbling fucking society. And we have an entire generation of women that want nothing to do with motherhood. And you know what? I don't blame them. Motherhood is one of the most fulfilling things you will ever fucking do. It's also one of the fucking hardest. Because the truth is, the majority of people don't have the support and community that it takes to raise a family. And it's not just the single moms. It doesn't matter if you have a partner and you have an active partner that is hands-on, the all-star dad, whatever that means today. And you guys do things together, you take turns with the kids and, try to make the best of things. That's still not enough. We were never supposed to be raising up families and children and doing all this on our own. We live in a very isolated society where hyper-independence is worn like a badge. And the lack of community is disturbing. And I don't really think this is the choice of the people. This is something that was forced upon us because the United States of America is a corporation. And we have been brainwashed for a very, very long time. We have been told that what you need to do is get a job, go to school, get a ton of debt, get a high-paying job, buy a big house, buy a big car, put your kids in the best school, daycares, pre-K, whatever it is. Buy the sneakers, buy the shirts, buy the name brands. And then when your kids are 18, you kick them out. They now need to go to work and survive on their own. Inflation has happened like so crazy. It's now basically a requirement for both parents to work. If that's not a thing in your house, you're very lucky. And I'm not saying that in some type of bitch way. I know that there's people that make a lot of sacrifice in order to have one parent at home. And I'm not saying that in any rude way. But it is very hard to even figure that out. And I actually follow a few accounts on TikTok, and I really give it to the mothers doing this, where they couldn't take the structure anymore of our society with the house and the things, and they sold everything so that they could live off one income. And they live in a double wide, and they don't have a lot of things. And is it cramped? Yep. But they sacrifice that in order to have one parent home raising the children. And I commend the mothers that do that, because there's a whole thing that they now have to face, which is going against a societal structure that tells you you're a failure if you do that. But I really don't feel like a family should have to give up basic luxuries in order to have one parent at home raising children like it should be. Because of all of this, the keep up with the Joneses, the white picket fence American dream bullshit that was sold to us, we're now entrapped in this prison of materialism. And even if you're not materialistic, you're forced to be because of how much it costs to live. Nobody in our country really can even fathom living with their parents or having an extended family type community living that is actually a thing in other countries, because family is supposed to be taking care of family, and this is where your community should be coming from. But we live in such a disassociated dystopia today. It's really sad, and it's becoming worse and worse. And I feel like the family unit's just crumbling more and more. Our society is going to get sicker and sicker and sicker the more the mothers are ignored. Being a woman is really hard in this society. And it starts when you're young. It starts with the pressures of your body. Constantly being told it needs to look a certain way. As if your body is a fucking fashion statement. And it's a trend. Big lips right now are a trend. BBL is a trend. Big tits is a trend. And now they're saying, oh, we're going from being thick isn't going to be a trend soon. We're going back to heroin chic. Why is the female body a trend? And then you grow up with this brainwashing that you have to be so skinny in order to be acceptable and lovable. And then you move into motherhood, and there is zero support for you as a mother to understand your body and what just happened to it. The hormonal cocktail that just went through your body. This is stuff that should be praised and honored and worshipped in the divine goddess of a woman. But because we are so broken and disconnected, we have bounce back culture, where women are expected to just go back to work within 6 to 8 weeks and pretend. Some don't even get that. And they're just supposed to drop their baby off to a stranger and go back to work in the system to make fucking money to survive. A baby that you just grew in your fucking body that only knows you is completely separated from its mother, the only thing that it needs. And then you're struggling with depression and this longing for your baby, but society tells you that you're not the normal one for feeling that. Then you have the reverse. You have the ones that do get to stay home with their baby, but then they're left in isolation. Nobody's there with you all of the time, and nobody's there to relieve you when you need a break, when you are jealous of your partner who gets to go to work and leave the house, when you just want a moment to take a shower and feel the hot water on your body, but you can't because the baby's crying, when you can't even pee by yourself, when you have to figure out how to cook dinner while holding the baby in the other arm, while stopping every 5 minutes to latch, figuring out if you're eating enough in order to produce really good breast milk for your baby, while at the same time trying to lose all that baby weight so you can fit in your own old clothes as soon as possible. And then you're labeled when you do have postpartum depression. See, postpartum depression isn't, there is some hormonal stuff that goes on. I mean, many women will attest to this. I was actually laughing the other day because this woman posted about like the weird thoughts that she would get in postpartum, and like thousands of women commenting, and like we were all like laughing about it. But like, this is the kind of community that you need, right? You need, when you're in postpartum, you need face-to-face laughter like that. And it's sad that it's just like randomly online once in a while. But like one of the women on there was saying how she had anxiety that her baby was gonna fall off of a cruise ship and drown, and she's never been on a cruise before. She just kept thinking of it. One of my baby fell overboard when we were on a cruise. This happened. So yeah, that kind of stuff is like hormonal, right? But the majority of postpartum depression is the lack of support, and it's the isolation of being within the home, and it's the lack of understanding of what's happening to your body and your own self when you are entering into motherhood. And I don't care if you're 10 kids in, this rehappens every time, because the same hormones get released during birth. You go into the void. The same amount of DMT is released in your brain as when you are dying. So you truly are rebirthed. You die and are reborn. When that rebirth happens with your baby, you are lost. You don't know who you are anymore. And many women try to just go back to their old life. I see it all the time on social media. Like, when am I going to feel like myself again? It's like 3 months in. Like, am I ever going to feel like myself again? The answer is no, you're not. And so there's this dreading lack of support for all of that, for a woman to find herself again afterwards, for a woman to just rest, for a woman to communicate with other women about what's going on in her mind without being labeled, about the silly things of like, is my baby gonna drown on a cruise that I'm never gonna be on? There's these things that don't get talked about and get hushed away in our society. And then unfortunately, on top of that, the pressures of bounce back, the isolation of no community, the inability to actually mother how it's supposed to be done. There's then the mothers that are actually treated like trash by their partners. There's also the single mothers that get ditched and have to raise their children on their own. See, because women birth babies, we have this illusion that we default to being able to do everything. Because we naturally know how to nurture, we're expected to take care of the kids, take care of the home, and do it all. And in today's society, we're also expected to work and bring an income. I think I read somewhere that of all of the divorces that are filed, don't quote me on this, but it was some high fucking number. It was like either 60 or like 80% of the divorces that are filed by women are filed within the first year of having a baby. There's something very wrong with that. Men really need to assess themselves. And you know what? Instead of doing that, they turn it back on the woman and they put down single mothers as if it's not them that walked out or them that didn't put in the effort that they were supposed to. Postpartum is when a woman is at her most fragile and vulnerable state. And for some reason, men, quote unquote, because they're not, they're man children, can't handle that. They still want to be taken care of like they too are a child. The biggest red flag for me is a man who has a child under 3 and is not with their wife or partner anymore. That's a red flag for me. Because in the majority of cases, I want to know, what did you do? What weren't you doing? Because for a woman to decide it's easier to be a single mother than to be with you, that think about that. Because that is one of the hardest things to fucking do. One of the things that I hate the most is when I see this a lot when, you know, new moms and stuff are posting videos on TikTok, whatever, and they're like overwhelmed and crying and they're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I haven't slept. I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, I can totally relate to that. It's so bad. I mean, sleep regressions, they're the worst. I remember when Zion was 10 months old, his sleep regression was so bad that I almost collapsed in the street from vertigo. I think I was getting, if you added it together over the course of the night, maybe 2 hours of sleep. I was getting random 15-minute increments. It was just so bad. But like some of the comments that I see from other women is like, you're strong, you got this. No, the fuck she don't. That's why she's breaking down and crying and asking for help. And I think that that's one of the worst things that you could say to somebody. You're strong, you got this. That's not a fucking compliment. Women aren't supposed to be strong. Women aren't supposed to be like, yeah, you got this. No, I don't want to got this. I don't want to be strong. I want to be a mother. I want to be soft. I want to nurture my baby. And that is stolen from a lot of women. It's stolen from most women. And I'll tell you what, a woman will never, ever forget how she was treated pregnancy and postpartum. Ever. And I don't care if you're still together. You'll look at that man differently for the rest of your fucking life because you'll never forget how you were treated when you were supposed to be vulnerable and soft and you were not supported during that time. And a lot of times, more stress was added on you during that time. And when a pregnant woman is under a lot of stress, that goes in the amniotic fluid of the baby. And the baby feels all of that, and their brain is developed in a very specific way based on the amount of stress that mother's carrying. And then in postpartum, when there's all of this cortisol constantly being activated and her hormones are trying to balance and there's the lack of sleep and she's still having to do everything around the house and is thrown into all of this, that constant continual stress of doing it all the time has a lot of long-term effects on her body physically. None of this is taken into consideration, and society just moves on, and it just gets worse and worse because for whatever reason, it seems like as time goes on, men get more and more selfish. They're more and more about themselves, and they're more and more looking for women to take care of them like they're fucking children, instead of stepping up and manning up and being what they're supposed to be during that time period. What I see in our society right now is absolute chaos that's due to the fact that mothers were never cared for. And it's really crazy to me that everything always constantly gets turned back on the woman all the time. Like, oh, she has daddy issues. Well, isn't that the father's fault? Oh, it's shown that children raised with single mothers are more likely to commit crimes. Why is that the mother's fault? It's the fucking father's fault for walking out. Like, there's just so much that's constantly put on the female. Like, we have to do it all perfect, and we're supposed to do everything. We have to cook, clean, run a fucking household, go to work, make money, run kids, do everything that we're supposed to do, and we're supposed to do it all alone. This is why nobody wants to have kids anymore. Our society doesn't support anything. And it's crazy to me that people are saying that, like, stay-at-home moms, that's not a job. But if you drop your kid off to daycare, that is a job. So when somebody else raises your motherfucking kid, that's a fucking job, and that is something because it brings in money. But when you do it yourself at home, that's not considered anything. You should just be doing that by default. Nothing, if you can't tell by the tone of my voice, nothing gets me more mad than when I see shit like that. Do you know how hard it is to be a stay-at-home mom? I'm one right now, on top of being the sole provider for my fucking children. So I have to work and take care of children by myself. There's no breaks. There's no nothing. Everything is on my shoulders. Do you know how isolating it is? Do you know what it's like to not be able to have 2 seconds to think for yourself? It's very mentally taxing. And I couldn't imagine being married to somebody where when they come home from work, don't see that kind of stress and just head for the toilet and stay in there for 30 minutes while they're scrolling on social media or looking at fucking OnlyFans. Our society's fucking nasty. I look around, like, nothing turns me on about the society. I don't mean that in a sexual way, like partially, I guess, but like turn on, meaning like light you up. What the fuck? Like, I don't get, people think like you're successful and that you've accomplished something when you have like a car and like a house and shit. Oh, I make this much money and I have a fancy car. That don't fucking mean shit. How do you treat people? How do you take care of the women in our society? This is a huge problem. No one's here taking care of women. I want to know, if there's men listening to this, you can feel free to fucking write me. Because I would really like to know why when y'all get into a relationship, you don't look at it as like an honor that you get to be the one to take care of that woman, that you get to be the one to be her emotional stability when she needs it. Why you get to be the one. She chose you to protect her. She chose you to be the one to confide in when she is crying or sad or doesn't know what to do in a situation. You have stepped into a role where you can actually nurture that woman and help her to advance in some type of way in her life and to cherish and honor her so that she can be in a place to raise you up healthy children, to continue on a bloodline. Why is it not looked at as that? When a woman has children, she gives up her entire life to give you that baby. I have constantly said this even before I had children. The biggest, most honorable thing a woman can do for you is have your baby. How do you not treat her like such? She gives up her entire body for the 9 months she's pregnant and for the entire time she's breastfeeding. Her body is not hers, it's that baby's. Everything she puts in her mouth goes to that baby, and she has to think about that. She gives up her identity, her personality, her time, everything. And I don't care. Fathers will never know what that's like, because your brain does not change hormonally to morph to what that baby needs. You will never experience that. You can parent differently, even if you have your kids every single fucking day. The crying, screaming children does not affect you in the same way, because you don't have the hormonal shift that transpires in a woman's body at birth. And growing that baby, as the connection happens in your body, your brain is changing to that baby. When women hear a baby cry, there's a different response in her body than a man, and it will always fucking be that way. So I don't care. I don't care of anything of like, well, I was a single dad, I did it, whatever. It's not the fucking same. It's not. Men will never understand what it is like for a female to go from maiden to mother. And women don't understand it until it actually happens. You're a completely different human. You do not think the same anymore. Your brain, you're not capable of thinking the same anymore. Your brain won't let you, because you have offspring to take care of. This is just put in our DNA to be that way. And when this doesn't happen, or there's a huge disconnect in like stories and stuff that I hear, this is because how sick our fucking society is. The pressure makes women crack, because we can't do it all anymore. Women are fucking burnt out. Women are burnt out. Mothers are burnt the fuck out. And I do not blame maidens for not wanting to make that transition into motherhood in this day and age. I really don't. And this is why I'm saying that motherhood is a lost art. Because being in isolation, having to do it all, and then being disrespected by our society, and then just told you need to hurry up and get back to doing the things that you used to do and get the body that you used to have, that whole bounce back culture, all of this bullshit, why would you want to take part in that? If we want to see our society change, we need to completely revamp how we view and do motherhood. Completely. Because nothing about it is done correct right now. We need to bring back a sense of community, which I don't see that happening. Sorry. The internet's making everything worse and worse. Maybe down the years that there's going to be a split off and things will start to happen that way. But I mean, they're trying to actually grow babies off of mothers' bodies so that they can work and not be bothered with pregnancy. Do you know what kind of fucking dystopia we are about to fucking live in because of AI? I don't think you realize where we're at in our fucking society right now. I can tell you I don't want to participate in this shit. They're making people more and more emotionally detached. If mothers were taken care of and honored and cherished, their offspring wouldn't have the emotional issues that they do. You wouldn't have unhealthy mothers having extreme over-attachment issues to their children, and you wouldn't have under-attachment issues to their children. You would have well-rounded children that are around other families and other women, and there would be a support system where women could talk to other women. Healthier food would be made because women would be together. Our society is so fast-paced. Like, It's easy to buy something frozen or go through a drive-through because you're so fucking tired at the end of the night. You guys, I like cooking and I love nourishing in that way, especially my children. I can't tell you how fucking sick I am of having to cook every meal from scratch, do all of the fucking dishes, clean up the fucking floors after, and then do it all again about an hour later. It is so exhausting on top of everything else. I can see why you want to go through the drive-through and just buy the frozen meal and call it a fucking day. And corporations know that. So they put the food dyes and the chemicals and the preservatives and all of that shit to get you put into the other programs of medications. So now they have your children and they have them on their medications, which is making them brainwashed. And then when both parents are forced out of the home to work, the children are put in the government school system. Who's raising your kids if your kids are in a school system out of the house 6 to 8 hours a day, maybe more? You're not raising those kids. The government is. And then when your child, who is not supposed to sit in a classroom 45 minutes at a time and then go to another classroom and sit 45 minutes at a time and keep sitting for 6 to 8 hours a day to get indoctrinated, they're put on medication again. So now your children are sick. They're on fucking medication that's controlling their fucking brain, all to sit and get indoctrinated by the government. And then if you go against this in society as a mother, you are fucking labeled and labeled and labeled. And you have to be careful what you say because guess what? You're the crazy mom that will get her children taken away from her. So you can't come out and say, I don't want my kids in public school. I don't want them indoctrinated by the man. I don't fucking want vaccines in my fucking children's blood. I don't want them on Adderall. I don't want them on Ritalin. I don't want them learning this shit. I want to keep my kids at home with me. Now you're labeled. And CPS should be involved because you could be abusing your children at home. Why is it in our society mothers are questioned when they put their children on a healthy diet, but not questioned when it's like, oh, we give Skittles and M&Ms in school and all of this nasty Cheetos and all of this shit. You don't want your kid to have that. You are questioned as the mother. Do you know what the burden is and stress on a fucking mother to protect her kids? All you want is health and stability for your children, and you're labeled fucking, you have to do it in a special way so that you're not flagged. This society is set up to make mothers fucking mental. I'm telling you. Because if the mother is broken down, who's raising up the children? Fucking nobody. And we live in this boss bitch, boss babe fucking society where that is praised over being with the children. And I'm not saying you can't do both. I can't just focus on children 24/7. I need a creative outlet. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those women. And it's totally fine if you're not. If you have 100% fulfillment, just taking care of your children, awesome. I want to do both. But the way our society is set up, it forces you to choose. And most of us can't choose. The basic standard of living right now is so high, it requires both parents to be out of the home. If mothers were taken care of and nurtured and nourished by the man of that relationship, the children would watch that and then they would know how to treat women. And the boys would see what it means to be tender and loving and nurturing, and they would know how to treat women and how to respect women. You know, I've seen a lot of videos of this recently, and I just saw one right before I hit record for this podcast episode. There was a girl in a bar getting harassed by a man. There was 4 men sitting behind her. I was watching. They didn't do one fucking thing. Not one fucking thing. That girl had to defend herself against a man. Like, what the fuck happened to the men of this society? They don't even stand up for women anymore. It's pathetic. For our society to shift the women have to start demanding more. And we are. There's a huge lashback from men because of that. You know, the lashback is the red pill movement and all that shit. And it's just showing how immature and egotistical men are. They can't sit down. They're not emotionally mature enough to sit down and actually listen to what it is that women need and why we are hurting. I mean, some of this shit is just basic, common human decency. And it's interesting to me because half of these men treating women this way wouldn't dare treat their guy friends this way. Why is there so much loyalty in that? Why do men deep down hate fucking women? And if that's not true, they surely don't act that way. There needs to be a shift in the way mothers are viewed, in the way mothers are treated. We need to start demanding to be treated in a healthy way and not given. And if men don't want to change, then let natural selection take run. Let Mother Nature do its thing. Because the goddess energy has been shit on for way too long. And a natural shift is about to happen. And men have a real rude awakening. The ones that don't want to shift, the ones that don't want to change, the ones that want to double down on their points and still want to try to remain some kind of victim while still calling themselves men. Mothers, we have to demand that kind of respect out of men and be willing to let them go if they won't change. And it is up to us to be teaching the maidens how to be. Because this is where the break is happening. Like, our grandmothers and mothers stayed through shit. Most of them because it was illegal. Like, you couldn't leave. We couldn't even have our own bank accounts until the 1970s. Where was a woman going with no money? The institution of marriage is patriarchy. It's pro-male. I'm not saying you don't want to be married. You do want to be married, whatever. I don't give a shit about that. I'm just saying the way it is set up right now is pro-male. It's a patriarchal construct. And if your mother or grandmother was sick of the abuse and wanted to leave, where was she going to go if she couldn't even have a bank account? If she couldn't even have a credit card? Where was she going? To the homeless shelter with her kids? There's a huge shift that's happening right now. And it's gonna happen with the mothers. It's gonna happen with the women reclaiming their power. And it's gonna be very, very uncomfortable, but this is something that needs to happen. And then we need to start opening our mouths more. And we need to start teaching the generations underneath us, or even ones that are still in our age bracket that haven't had children yet. We need to start being vocal and teaching them, because this is the only way that things are going to change. If you want a different society, the way mothers are treated, the way mothers are respected, and the way mothers are looked at has to change. And the only way that it's going to do that is if we demand it and if we stay wicked. Want to be part of an online community filled with other badass women supporting each other on their wicked journey? Check out my online community, the Wise Woman Network. We have classes, courses, online community meetings, and more. Activate that sleeping goddess within and unleash your divine power. Join me today on a free trial to all my listeners. Link is in the show notes. I'll see you there.